Long time no see.
Long time no see. How are you doing?
Everything is going good. How's it going with you?
Well, today's just a good day.
It's been quite a few important weeks for Oyster, right? And for you too.
It has. It's been crazy intense week after week, and but yeah.
I wanted to talk about Vilash, a co-founder that has over 19 years of product management experience and business development within mobile, financial services and payments, and that you have all this background developing new products from the idea, from the concept to the launch. So what else can you tell us about yourself?
So let's see, on the professional front, I would say that I'd like people to know about me is that perhaps most the learnings that I've had is really from being in a place where I have given myself the ability to fail,
Okay.
and fail quickly, right?
Yes.
And having the kind of managers that were very supportive and encouraging of the entrepreneurial drive that I had, and not restricting that, but really giving me an opportunity to thrive, I would say is it's perhaps on the professional side one of the reasons that I feel like where I am right now, a lot of it has to do with the amazing mentors and managers and friends and peers who I worked with that really pushed the boundaries really well.
Yes.
I would say from the soft skills. Now, from the hard skills, I think these are things that I just picked up, and some of it by pure luck, by being at the right place at the right time.
Okay.
In terms of the company, and I think some of it was really trying to move from an engineering side, being very interested in engineering, and then being very intrigued by product and moving to the product side. And I think that's the kind of combination of soft and hard skills, like why product management. Product management was something that intrigued me. Why business development? Because I was very intrigued by, like, how do I sell the products that I build? How do partners and how do companies that use the product perceive it? Learning firsthand from that customer feedback was what and I feel like that was kind of the trying to be more thorough, I guess, or understanding more of the wheel, rather than just saying, this is the part of the wheel that I know and that's all I want to do. It's the curiosity around saying, yeah, there are other parts of the wheel that I also want to know how those work. And that's what I think gave me that ability to diversify. I wouldn't say that I'm good at all parts of the wheel, but I think the knowledge is there in terms of just being able to understand, how that part of the wheel works, right?
Yes. Yes, totally. And what you said, I think it's really important that you have this in mind. If a customer says that you can do better in a product, you're not only in your idea, you take that feedback in order to make the product better for the customer, the final customer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And something that I wanted to talk about is about the article that came last week. Can you tell us about the seed investment round that you have?
Yeah, so Oyster closed a $14 million seed funding round, the largest seed round in Latin America to date.
Amazing.
Thank you, Andrea. And really, I think it comes down to two simple things that, if you were to break it down, it's a hard to tackle problem, which is going after businesses, solving their pain points. And it takes a lot to understand, like, what are these pain points that businesses have? And it's a hard area because business banking has never been solved, just because it takes a lot to underwrite businesses, to really know who the businesses are, who are the partners in a business, what the constitution of a business looks like, and then why is a business with a certain set of financial products behaving one or the other. And the second and most important thing that I think that investors saw in Oyster was the team.
Yes.
And this is a team where Gabo, my co-founder, is really well versed with payments and fintech. My head of credit comes from a very amazing background in credit. And really, I can pick every single person on the team has some intersection with credit or fintech, payments, came from, companies like Google or Amazon.
Yeah.
And this created that culture of really moving independently, but really having that drive of getting products to market, being very iterative, being very scrappy. And that's something that we really enjoy at Oyster.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that early fabric of building a really close-knit team, but also a very strong team that I think we invested very heavily in.
Yes, totally.
And that's really and I'd say, one of the reasons why we got the funding is the know-how, and it's really about the ability to execute now in the Mexico context.
Yes, and I think you're totally right. I mean, it's the people, what they can bring to Oyster at this moment, that it's this mindset of entrepreneurship and being independent and not having someone tell you what to do. Just go for the product in order to make it better in every single part of the company, right?
Right.
When was the idea of Oyster in your mind? When you had the first idea about Oyster, do you remember that moment?
I do. It actually happened in Berlin. I was in Berlin building a business banking platform as a service called Fintech Solutions.
Okay.
And part of the challenge that we had is, even though it was a enterprise product, where we built product for large banks, and we launched it with Deutsche Bank in Germany and ABN in Netherlands and Banca Sella in Italy. Mm-hmm. We did not see the separation between product and platform, or platform and professional services, right? Okay. So when we got deals, everyone in the product and technology in this side jumped on and started to adapt this platform to make it available, right?
Okay.
So I thought, I'd already knew Mexico really, really well. And I said, hey, why should it be this hard? What if this was really an operating system? And what if we're looking at things the wrong way? And, mm-hmm. What if, a bank itself is really not what is required? It's a regulatory entity, but it's no different than the Linux of an Android operating system. And I remember this really sparked this thought in my mind. At that point, it wasn't called Oyster. It was more about, hey, how can you build, and initially I called it a business operating system, right? I said, I want to understand how businesses can operate. And that was that initial kindling spark of because I decided that I want to come to Mexico and build something for businesses. I just hadn't, and I wanted to put myself in a place where I was doing that for businesses. Okay. But I've given myself the ability not to be restricted in my thinking that it had to be a certain way.
Okay. Okay. So you had the idea, but you didn't know what was the product about.
Right. I had to, correct. I basically said, if I stay in this domain and I go through and understand, and I'll be building domain knowledge. That is something that I really enjoy about startups I build. I don't build a startup unless I have the domain knowledge. This is something that I feel like is really important. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like with the domain and the subject matter knowledge, I have a better ability to control the product, the technology, and the operation. So a few months later, I called Consuelo Valverde when she's Mexican, who had moved to the US a long time ago, had a very successful fund one, had invested in Clip. I was traveling on vacation, and I called Consuelo and I said, Consuelo, I have this great idea. It is something to help businesses because business banking is a problem in Mexico. Yes. And she's like, oh my gosh, I love this idea. I've been waiting for someone to come and pitch this to me. Let's talk about it. So we met in London because she was vacationing in Europe.
Okay. And so the timing was great.
the timing was great, but maybe to make the long story short, we met at Paddington Circle, the station. We just bought an Oyster card to go through the subway, but we didn't know at that point it was Oyster, that would be the company name. And many months later, initially the company name was called Prama, and Prama was derived from the Latin name premium, which means a reward, because we're giving a reward to a business. And then Consuelo had suggested, because I'd already written this deck, and as we were about to launch the Fintech operating system deck, which is a very elaborate deck about comparing what businesses need and how banking itself had to morph in order to adapt to the needs of businesses, and how it was the core, but it didn't need to be where it was today. So, fast forward, Consuelo said, like, hey, you need a branding expert. We picked somebody from the UK. And what we were told him, when I arrived in Mexico, is you cannot use the word bank unless you hold a bank license.
Yes. Okay. So you had to change the name or the idea.
We had to change the name, but we had this deck where in the deck, I already had coined terms called Be Health and Be Fit, like Apple Health and Google Fit, right? So for him, it made perfect sense to combine Be Health and Be Fit with bank account, but not, using the word bank, which is Oyster, right? Because Oyster is a shell, it's safe and it's secure, but Oyster has a pearl, which means that when businesses give you data, over time we can give them insights. Just like everyone has an Apple Watch and a Google Watch, and then an Android watch, and then it gives you stats on your core health, right?
Yes.
And so this is exactly how the brand Oyster was born, from the kindling of the idea to, probably the connective tissue around, using an Oyster card in London, and Consuelo becoming the investor, to picking the name Oyster because we also hired a UK branding expert. So there was a lot of probably good connective tissue, but that's where the idea was born, Andrea, that it wasn't just a business bank, that it was a financial platform.
That's amazing. And it's a good story for people that listen to your ideas and that they immediately said, okay, this is what we need. This is what Mexico needs. And I don't know how you got to that point where you said, this is going to be a good company for Mexico. This is what they need. I think it's the perfect timing also for Oyster to coming to the business.
Right. So I think the need we're solving. So one, I think we're giving businesses the ability to not actually have to struggle to manage their banking relationship.
Yes.
I think in a world, in a context shift that we're all dealing with, maybe the one thing that is comforting is that when you are calling your financial partner, that they're available for you, that you're not on the line for a long time, you're not being answered by a robot, right? And then as businesses, are able to get the first financial product, we're able to really understand what's going behind the scenes, because that's one of the reasons we started with a business bank account, because we wanted to understand their cash flow. So we can then recommend them financial products, but not really being a one size fits all. And really, we believe in this thing called contextual credit, which is how do we originate credit based on the kind of business that you are, right? Obviously, we have some thoughts. I think this is still a long way away from, and I think this is the part about enabling the good businesses to thrive, right? Because we believe that when we let businesses thrive, right, which means we give them the financial products without adverse conditions around how they can adopt the financial products, we want to build a very healthy relationship with our customers, right?
Yes.
Why do we believe in that? Because we believe that if we build the right financial products and serve our customers, we're going to let them thrive and elongate, right? So we believe that our customers are going to keep coming back to get financial products that they enjoy bringing from the Oyster, deriving from the Oyster platform, and staying longer on the platform, right? That is that core experience, which I think a lot of players have done that really, really well in the consumer space, like I would say Apple and Google and Facebook and Amazon, right?
Mhm.
But, we're just applying some of these real core concepts to businesses, right? And
Yeah.
not just saying it's a business bank, it's much bigger, right? And if there was ever a time, Andrea, now's the time to really be there for a business.
Yes, totally. And I 100% agree. I told you since I think our first call, I mean, I knew it was going to be big because of the people that's in Oyster, but congratulations once again because I think it's
Yep.
amazing. You've been telling us all these ideas and like I could say a pros of being an entrepreneur and going like, okay, check, check, check. But what can you tell us about the difficulties that you have been through in all of this process?
Yeah. So I would say the one thing for most aspiring, like any aspiring entrepreneur or even an entrepreneur that is seasoned, right? It's and there's an aspect of timing, right? And timing is so key.
Yeah.
And I would say even Oyster, there was we went through some challenges about starting our round too early, right?
Okay.
And what happens when you start your round too early and your numbers are still not mature, and you reach out to investors basically think, either the market is not ready or the team is not executing and doesn't have the right product to go make product market fit, right?
Yeah. So they can hesitate.
They can hesitate, right? And as they would say, usually it's you get this chance one time and you want to make that your best impression, right?
Yes.
So I would say again, there's no perfect science about it. What I found and the challenges that we have found and the lessons that I've learned is that for the investors that really understand the category, it's a lot easier for them when they understand the category and they understand the market and the power of the market. And for investors that don't really are not yet in the market, right? They are really looking at patterns that they can understand from your data to apply that with patterns that they have in their current market.
Yeah.
So if you're not yet at that point, it's a pause, it's a cause and a hesitation, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um,
Yes. Yes. Because it can be
so I
difficult
would
for them, right? Like
right,
to understand and to see the final idea of the product. Like you can try to explain as much as you can, but maybe if they don't see, I don't know, maybe data, like you mentioned, it's a little bit
product market fit,
complicated to see, to see it
right,
in the future.
right. So yeah, so I think it really comes down to the timing and again I think every entrepreneur has this gut feel about when you begin. I can talk about like the unique challenges that I faced,
Yes.
that I think some of them are perhaps relatable, that you probably should choose the right time and not go in too early.
Okay.
And that by itself also predicates that that you have sufficiently capitalized yourself in order to get to the point that you can really get those good numbers, right? Which is also a very important position because you are in a position to keep running your company and fundraising at the same point, without feeling like you're in a position where you must get funded, and if not, you really are out of runway, right?
Yes, it must be exhausting because, like you mentioned before, you have to be taking care of your company, of the product, of being in charge of everything within Oyster,
Yeah,
and okay, looking for new investors or
yeah.
seeing what else you can do in order to make the product better. So it's it's a 24/7 job, 365 basically.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, absolutely, Andrea. But I think it's, I think the relationships and the knowledge that you build with investors is really, really key, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it's building a relationship for the future, even if it means that the investor might not come in round A and you're only in seed,
Mhm.
and that they would be coming in round B. I think it's the ability to stay in touch, to communicate, to send out like newsletters, to keep them informed.
Mhm.
And I think this is a very, very good approach. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs now do this very often to, kind of keep the investors warm and keeping them up to date.
Yes, and let them
But
know
I, yeah,
where's the status of the company.
right. and I think that, that process is not necessarily exhausting as much as it's a learning process, right? But I think, so there's aspects of actively fundraising, executing back again into the fundraising mode. There are cycles of where there's not where you are executing and fundraising at the same time. But, I think perhaps the right, breakdown is, having better spacing between those activities, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. And what would be like the most rewarding thing about being an entrepreneur?
Wow, it's being able to execute on your vision, right?
Okay.
And the freedom and the ability to learn, to iterate, because I think it's one thing to have a vision, it's another thing to the reality of, testing the product, on the ground, learning from the feedback, continuously, iterating, right? Because your vision is so far up,
Yes.
but your product is at the ground floor level, and you're continuously calibrating now. What does it take to go from where you are to get to your vision? The steps that perhaps you had anticipated are perhaps not the same steps that you're going to go, right?
Yes.
Maybe you thought there were shorter steps, but many steps, but maybe these are longer steps, but fewer steps, right?
Yeah.
And all of these things I think are very fulfilling. And for me as an entrepreneur, as I would say, it's waking up and realizing that every day is an opportunity for you to, in the case of Oyster, we're helping businesses
Mm-hmm.
who are addressing their pain points. That is very, very satisfying to me personally. It's something that my team also sees very much, that we're really solving these businesses, the feedback that they give us, that's very fulfilling.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other part of entrepreneurship is really going, into the aspect of company building, team building, and really, understanding what are the aspects of the company to take shape as you want to go into the future, right?
Yeah.
Which is for me, I think that's a very fulfilling aspect.
Yeah, because it's being part of every part of the company, of the product, and being close to the people that's within the company and that's
Yeah.
working with you, for you, and for Oyster. At the end of the day, it's like you mentioned before, it's the idea that you have, and maybe you have the product desktop on your
Yeah.
mind, but you have to work it from scratch. So it's not that easy when when you're faced within the decision. Okay, now I have the idea, and now I have to move forward and start doing it, right?
Right.
That it's the big deal in a way.
Yep.
What would you tell to other entrepreneurs that are starting out, or that are having this idea at this timing? That we come back to this word, but I think it's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah. So I would say the number one lesson about entrepreneurship is be ready to dive heads first,
Okay.
right? If you have a plan B, then I don't think you're fully committed to
Okay.
failing and learning and picking up and moving forward, right?
Yes.
Um, Obviously, I think, one of the most important things is, do your customer research, do your customer discovery, understand the pain point, right? Understand the market need, and build and understand how to build a good team, right? This is really, really big. And I would say, one of the, you'll see this with a lot of entrepreneurs. They have actually met their co-founders, myself included. Gabo and I had a great working relationship at Clip. We stayed in touch, and then it just made sense for us to co-found Oyster because we had a lot of shared knowledge, right?
Yes.
My previous startup, Clip, I'd worked with Adolfo for many years at PayPal before I started a journey with him at Clip, right? And this is something that entrepreneurs, need to understand, that it is this ability to connect with people in
Yes.
their current careers and help them understand the vision is part of the storytelling that you need to begin to be an entrepreneur, right?
Okay.
Because you can convince somebody where you don't have capital, and you have a great vision and you're able to show through your current work that you are a person of ethics, that you can carry it out, that you are, a hardworking individual that can pick up from failure and move past.
Yes.
Those are the inspiring aspects that get people to follow you. And you need that early adoption of people that will follow you in order to build really good startups, right? Mm-hmm. Because that early part of a startup is a fabric. It's a way to understand where, you have people that you worked with before, where things are starting to really click through quickly, and I would say that is a part of that I would give entrepreneurs. Really focus on building the key people in your team very, very early. Don't make it an afterthought, right? Really understand the market opportunity and what pain point you're solving, and then the last one is like pitch the idea.
Okay.
Early, right? Because as you pitch the idea, you're starting to fine tune what is it that people are giving you as feedback, right?
Yes.
Because really pitching the idea is very, very important, right? Like when you pitch the idea, you are, the other person is giving you feedback that you start to iterate on what you're learning, right? Mm-hmm. And I would just say, do that early, do that with friends, do that with other people. It's a great way for you to validate, how people are perceiving what is it that you're building.
Yes, to get an idea of your product is really gonna be interesting for other people, not just your idea, right?
Correct.
You want to tell us anything else, Vilash, about you, about Oyster? What are the next steps? We're probably gonna have a new article about Oyster.
So I would say I'll leave you with. Or rather, I'll say three things that our current funding round is focused on. Really, at this point, our focus on the area is gaining market share.
Okay.
And this is something that I've said, and I'll quote my community manager Tom, where he says it's top of mind and tip of tongue, right? And what is top of mind and tip of tongue means that the impression that we're leaving with the business, the way we connect to them, the way that they connect with us and feel safe and secure as a financial partner, mm-hmm. It gives them the ability to recommend other businesses to come on board with Oyster, right? That we're not just chasing a number, we're also chasing, that we're looking at the quality of the relationship we're building with our customer, right?
Yes.
The second thing is really around, what I mentioned around credit, but again, I would say, how can we help these businesses in this context really continue to move forward, enabling them, supporting them, making them feel like Oyster is a financial partner that they can lean on, building that trust relationship. And the last step is going beyond what banks have provided to businesses and building that ability for businesses to gain more value from the Oyster platform, right? Yes. That's our core focus. Can I predict what's going to come next week? We don't
Good
know.
News.
We don't know what the. I hope it's good news, and I think I think the opportunity and what we have to do and the road ahead is really fun and challenging and exciting.
Yes, totally.
But maybe one thing I want to pass along to anyone that what Oyster's $14 million round signifies for Mexico and Latin America, right?
Yes.
What it signifies in the investors from the United States, the investors from Brazil, what it signals for Mexico and specifically Latin America, and you probably saw that today dLocal, a Uruguayan company, raised a payments company raised 200 million, led by General Atlantic, made it one of the first unicorns of Uruguay. is there a unicorn in Mexico? Not yet. And you'd wonder, why is it a country that's so high up on the GDP not able to make get a unicorn,
Yeah.
right?
You're on the track to become Mexico's first unicorn, right?
We hope so. Thank you for
Yeah.
those wishes. But I think, again, I think it's a great opportunity for Mexican entrepreneurs. Mexico is a fantastic country for fintech to thrive.
Mm.
It's also a great opportunity and door opener for a lot of technical incubation.
Okay.
And I think it's going to raise the technology standards in Mexico higher than it has ever happened, right?
Mm.
Because more and more of this investment, more startups in Mexico means that you're going to, there's going to be a stronger base of engineers here, which is really, really important to get that kind of talent pool, whether it be for Oyster or whether it be for another company. Mexico is building that talent pool and that opportunity for all startups to thrive, right? Not just, and I think this is a very strong signal, and it's really, telling other entrepreneurs that, yes, Mexico is a country that investors are opening up to. And I think Oyster is not the only one. There's several other Mexican startups that have raised big rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a trend that we have been, I think we just, we are, with these other startups that have also raised these bigger rounds,
Mm-hmm.
which is showing the ability for this market to make the big moves, right?
Yes.
And I think this is what I think entrepreneurs in this country should really look at, is the opportunity that we're sitting on, right? The opportunity to really solve hard problems is what I think we should be looking at. What are those hard problems and what can we tackle?
Yes, like you mentioned before, that maybe with Mexico right now, it's a good opportunity, it's a good moment. And if maybe people are having ideas of building their own company, or
Right.
I don't know, a lot of ideas, maybe it's the moment. Take that leap of faith and go ahead and do it. Maybe it's the good time, right?
Right. And I think it's also a very good indicator, and again, this is I should have said this before. A lot of Mexicans who went to the United States to get their undergraduate or their master's education
Mm-hmm.
are going to look at these press releases, are going to look at the Mexican startups raising these rounds, to bring back the talent that originated in Mexico in the first place, right?
Yes.
And I think that is so important for the country, where you have, you have really amazing individuals going to the top schools in the US,
Yes.
who are going to come back here and who are equipped with the knowledge, who are going to find an amazing talent pool to build, in Mexico, right? And that
Yes.
is such a powerful thing for this country, that these kinds of signals are going to be kind of the, like, hey, there's a flag about like what's happening in Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
and call it like the honing signal, right, for a lot of the Mexicans to come back, which is amazing for the country.
Yes, totally, because they're gonna be ready just to, okay, I get this knowledge at this university, and ready to, okay, I'm gonna go to this startup, to this fintech, and do it. And they're gonna be
Right.
100% ready, like you mentioned before.
Right. And you're going to get a very diverse, and I think that's one of the things that's also happening in Mexico in the startup scene, is the diversity of founders, that Mexico probably never saw a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
It's a very diverse founder base in the Mexican startup scene. I don't think a few years ago anyone could have foreseen having founders from different backgrounds, from different, who were born in different countries, and raised in different countries, who probably became American citizens, but decided that they would do, business in Mexico, like me.
Yeah.
Or the founder of Cuenca, or the founder of Un Dos Tres, right? Like, no one could have predicted that you have these journeys of coming and working for rocket internet companies, and, falling in love with Mexico and staying in Mexico. And I think it signals that
Yeah.
this is a market that actually has a lot of need, right? That people are connecting with these problems and the needs of the customer and feel like, yeah, they can actually build world-class products in this market, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So this is I think, the opportunity for entrepreneurs to rise,
Yeah.
and continue to bring that interest into the market. And we hope that we, in a very small way, have helped in creating that awareness for Mexico.
No, I'm sure we will, and that's one of the main goals of this talks, so people can get to know about the risks, but also about the good things of being an entrepreneur, anything that can come up within this process of having the idea and getting the product launched, and also what can happen once the product is launched, because you have to listen to your customers and find the needs that they have in order to make it better. So
Absolutely.
totally one thing that I think it's important for people to know, like, to don't be scared, to don't think that if you're going to do it at the first time it's going to be 100% sure that you're going to go to the 14 million seed founder round,
Yeah.
but you can go for it and keep working hard every day, and every milestone is going to be amazing, and not just for you, also for the ones within your company.
Right, and what's happening, Andrea, is that the founders and the quality of founders that Mexico has right now is great for the whole entrepreneurial community, right? Because you're going to have founders who can mentor. You're going to have founders that are giving back to other founders, and this is really, really great, right? Because this is the way that you can really bootstrap and have a really strong entrepreneurial community that's building in Mexico, right? And that's happening. And
Yep.
the diverse background that you're seeing, you have founders originating in Europe and Asia and so many other markets here. And these learnings are key because the learnings in Asia are different from the learnings in the US, are different from the learnings in Europe, right? But when you
Yes.
have this mixed, highly diverse one place, it's going to help you with a really strong entrepreneurial base, right? That's one of the things that I personally feel is going, in the right direction here, is that diversity, right?
Yes. Well, I'm so happy that you decided to come to Mexico and found Oyster, because I know it's going to help a lot of companies. I'm 100% sure of that. And congratulations once again. I know I've said it a lot of times, but
Thank
for
you,
me,
Andre.
it's amazing what this seed means for Oyster, for Mexico too.
Thank you again. Many thanks. We're counting on the support of you and many other people that can see oysters helping their businesses, and please spread the word and please tell your friends, and really I think at this point it is, we're counting on everyone's feedback, and if anyone has a small and medium business to tell us what their experience was, and we're here to listen and improve.
Of course. Well, thank you very much for your time, Vilash, and hope you have a good day. Hope you can rest.
Thank you, Andrea. Have a great evening.
You too.